In this lesson, we're going to talk about the mentoring revolution. Now, before we even get into it, I want to just remind you to download that workbook online. Hopefully, you've got a mentor or a small group or someone that's helping you go through this series. Maybe it's a leadership team. But let's start by defining what mentoring is. You know, this is a word that maybe you've heard in business or in sports. Of course, parents at home are mentors. Mentors are just, people that are helping other people. But in this series, we're talking specifically about something called biblical mentoring. Now, the Bible uses the word discipleship, and that's a great word too. Obviously, it's in the Bible. Jesus uses the word. But we use the word mentoring. It means the same thing because mentoring is something that people can understand in our world, even if they're uninitiated. And it really captures the sense of what we're talking about here. We're talking about helping somebody else, giving them guidance. That's what mentoring is. Here's the first thing you need to understand about it. Mentoring another person will revolutionize your whole world. Now, obviously, it'll change the life of the person that you're mentoring or the people that you mentor. Hopefully, that'll become obvious. But it should also be obvious to you by now, hopefully, if you've taken foundations, that mentoring will also change your world. It'll also change your faith. Remember, foundations truth number 3 is that we mature, we grow by helping someone else. And the greatest way to help someone else is by helping them pursue God, by mentoring them, by discipling them. Look what it says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14. It says, "Then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We won't be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever that they sound like the truth." Now look closely at those words there. Paul is talking about the benefits of mentoring someone else. When you can learn to speak the truth in love, you'll no longer be immature. You won't be tossed about by the wind of every new teaching, and you won't be influenced when people try to trick you with lies that sound like the truth. Now, what he's describing there is mentoring. He says, when you learn how to mentor someone, when you start explaining it to someone, helping them discover the truth and live out the truth, when you can start doing that, it'll have this effect on your own faith, on your own life. You won't now be fooled anymore by some of the lies that are out there. So it's critically important, not just for the other person's faith, but for your faith, that you learn how to mentor. And ultimately, it'll revolutionize the next generation. Hopefully this thing will go viral. I mean, after all, think about it. Jesus only mentored a handful of fishermen for 3 years. That's pretty incredible. And then he left. And he knew that they, even though they weren't trained, he knew that they, if they could keep it simple, and after how he poured into their lives, he knew that they could revolutionize their world. And they did. Just a handful of uneducated men revolutionized the world that they lived in and the world that we live in. See how it was viral for them. And if we can get this, you can be a part of that. You can be a part of that revolution. And you can help people just like those original disciples did as well. That's what mentoring is. So let's define the term a little further. Mentoring is personally helping someone pursue God. Now, I know that's a pretty basic definition, but it's important for you to understand the basics first. Mentoring is personally helping someone pursue God. See, a preacher, your pastor, the guy who gets up on stage and preaches to hundreds or thousands, he's not mentoring anyone. He's preaching, and that's great. But he's not mentoring anyone because he's not personally helping them pursue God in a personal relationship with them. See, this is what Jesus did in John 1:43. When he started his ministry, he decided to go to Galilee, and he found a guy named Philip, and here's what he said to him. Come, follow me. See, what Jesus is doing there is a model for all of us right now. He was inviting them into a relationship with him. Now, yes, he went around and preached to crowds and all that kind of stuff as well. But his most important, personal ministry on the earth was to these 12 guys that he invited to follow him. This was his mentoring relationship. This is how he was going to change the world. Look at what he said a little bit later to them. After he'd walked with them for a few years, he said, I've loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. And this is my commandment, love each other in the same way that I have loved you. See, what he was saying is, don't forget relationship. He was trying to train these guys to revolutionize their world through relationships, through love. He said, I've loved you. I've entered into relationship with you. And I want you to enter into relationships with others. I want you to love others. Because mentoring is the most effective way to go from discovery of a truth to application. From having that aha moment when the light bulb goes on for you to actually being able to live it out in your life. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before, where maybe you're hearing a sermon and that sermon's just really hitting home to you at church, and you're like, man, I got to do something about that. I really should do something because the light bulbs kind of come on for you, right? But then you never actually apply it. You never actually, bring it into your everyday life. Well, then what was the point, right? It's not just about hearing the truth, discovering it. It's about having the ability to live it out in our lives. And see, this is the point, is mentoring is that missing link for so many people. So many people miss that. They never apply something that they've learned because they've never talked about it and processed it and thought about it and gained their own conviction about it. See, this is why Jesus spent so much time mentoring, not just preaching. He was going around trying to help people to understand, listen, this is true. But then he would go talk to his disciples and help them process it. He would ask them questions. He would engage them in that thing. And his disciples slowly, it was slow, right, for so many of them, but slowly they started saying, oh, wait, I think I get it. I think I get it. And they still didn't fully get it, right? But he was beginning to mentor them, helping them to understand it. And then he went away. And of course, we've got the Holy Spirit and the Bible, just like he gave to them, to help us to go that extra step. The Spirit leads us and the Bible guides us. But mentors, remember this? Other people, other believers help us. Other believers help us to go from discovering something true to living that thing out. And that's why it's so important for you to be a mentor and for you to have a mentor, because it's central in this whole process, this whole pathway from hearing the truth to living the truth. You have to be able to talk about it, and that is what a mentor is for. One more thing. Jesus commanded you to be a mentor. If you're a follower of Jesus, maybe all this stuff didn't do it for you yet, but maybe this last thing will get you to think about the mentoring revolution and entering in on it. Listen, Jesus commanded you. If you're a follower of Jesus, he commanded you to go and help someone, to go and mentor someone, to do what he did. He wasn't above it, and you and I aren't above it. Look what he said in Matthew 28, verse 19. He says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching these new disciples to obey all the commands that I have given to you. That only happens through mentoring. So join the mentoring revolution. I encourage you to download that workbook and talk about some of those questions. Begin to process this with a mentor or a small group.